Hi, I'm Leah. This is Leah's Food. Today we're going to be making blondies, and we will be cooking with an egg, 1 1/3 cup of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder mixed with half a teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of packed brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and that is 1/2 cup of melted butter. So the first thing you do when you make blondies is combine your dry ingredients. So the first thing that we'll be doing is taking the flour to a smallish sized bowl along with the baking powder and the salt. And once you've done so, just give them a quick little whisk together. That way they get really nice and combined. That way you don't have some of your blondies that are like crazy salty and not other chunks that aren't. So mix well. And then you can set that aside for later. So the next thing we're going to do after that is take the butter, put the butter in a bigger bowl because you're going to have a lot more to mix in this one. Make sure all that butter's good and in there. And then put in the packed brown sugar, which is going to be pretty packed. I packed that thing in pretty tightly. And then you're going to want to cream those together, which isn't my favorite process, but it's a really necessary step. Part of the reason why I really like this recipe is because it doesn't call for very many ingredients and you get a lot out of it. It ends up basically being a fancier version of a chocolate chip cookie, which, I mean, who doesn't enjoy that? So mix in the egg, and you're going to want to try and break apart those chunks from the brown sugar. I first started using it back when I worked in a bakery. It's sort of like a modified version of what I used in the bakery. The bakery I worked at, we put in other things in with recipe as well. Things like peanut butter or like white chocolate chips, stuff like that. We would like to modify the ingredients a lot like that all the time. Personally though, I'm a big fan of just really simple desserts. So just having chocolate chips in it for me is wonderful. So now I'm going to pour in the vanilla extract. Getting all them little drips in. Just break up the chunks as best you can. Yeah. One of the reasons I also really like to use this recipe is because 1, it doesn't call for many ingredients, you get a lot out of it, and then 2, it doesn't require any very fancy methods of baking. So like you don't need to have a KitchenAid mixer to make it. You don't need to have any fancy pans, nothing like that. So it's something that I started making when I was first in the dorm rooms because it was so simple. Okay. This is about the consistency you're going to want from it. Pretty thick, a little bit less thick than cookie batter, but still pretty thick. Think warm peanut butter. Now we're going to put the flour in. So the easiest way to do this is to pour in a little bit of flour, about 1/2 to 1/3 of the flour. Just put that in the bowl, mix that together with the ingredient. Part of the reason you do it gradually is so that if the recipe does start getting too dry, you can fix it really easily early on. So now that you have it back at more of a still like at a warmish peanut butter state, but it's so that you don't see any white chunks in the actual thing itself, you can start adding in more flour. But still not overwhelming it. As you mix it up more and more, it's going to get a lot thicker. And usually at a certain point in this, I stop using the whisk altogether because you'll get stuff trapped inside the whisk. I'm going to put that in one of these bowls over here. Roll up the old sleeves. And then I'm going to mix in the part of the rest of the flour. I still don't want to put in all of it at once. And start using my hands. And fair warning, this does get pretty messy, so if you're not into using your hands when you cook, don't do this. Try and get the flour from the sides as well. Okay, so just mix that together really well. final thing you're going to want to do before you put your blondie mix in the oven is thoroughly spray your cooking pan. My usual motto for this is that more is better, so just make sure you have every nook and crevice. That looks about good to me. So then you're going to stick your dough into the pan, and the dough at this point should be quite firm. It should be able to hold its shape pretty easily. It has a little arch up here and it's holding that without any difficulty. I can hold it in my hand and it's not slipping through my fingers. Overall, it's pretty firm and kind of similar to a nice cake dough. So you can stick that into the pan after you play with it in your hands, because why not? Yeah. So then you're going to want to spread the dough out to the corners of the pan and pretty evenly. That way you don't have any like weird sides that have a lot of dough and the other side doesn't have any. And that way you also have a nice consistent cook time, so you don't have one half that's burned because there's nothing on that side and the other half like sad and doughy. That's not what we want from our foods. Sadness. Okay. So now the final thing that you do is add in the chocolate chips. So pour in the chocolate chips. You can do as many as you want. I usually try and do about a cup. This is probably more than a cup. And then spread them out over the surface of the dough. And then try and like even press in some so that they're also kind of embedded into the dough. So you'll put the blondie into the oven once you've preheated the oven to 350 degrees, and it is in fact preheated. You can stick in the blondies and bake them for about 13 minutes. It's been about 13 minutes. Pull that out of the oven. Be real careful so as not to burn yourself. So it should have like a darker exterior around the edges. So you can see it has like a slightly darker golden bit there, and then it should be nice and puffed up too. You should be able to see like some wrinkles on its surface. So an easy way to check whether or not it's done is just take a fork or a toothpick or something like that and stick it in the center or in a really dense part. And then if the fork comes up clean, that means it's done. I'm cutting it roughly in half. And then we can divide it into 6 or however many pieces we really want. Sometimes my roommate and I just cut it in half and then just each take a half. Just look at that. Yeah. So do as many pieces as you feel like or feel comfortable doing. I think I'm probably going to do 4 pieces. That sounds good in my head. The spatula always picks up a lot of chocolate on that dish. Cool. Yeah, so now we can serve it up. Hypothetically. This has been Leah's Food. Have a great day.